Hey there, welcome to Pastor's Talk. Sorry for the late start. We had a few technical issues, but our awesome tech guy Colin got it all worked out. So we're a little bit late, but if you're still sitting on pins and needles waiting for it to start, here you go. My name is Daniel. I'm one of the pastors here at Redemption Church. This is Nick Erickson. Bobby Wood is out of town, and our fourth pastor, Tim Lewis, also had some other things going on. So they're not with us, but we do have a special guest with us. This is Quint Adkins. And if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we had Pastor Jay Adkins from New Orleans on with us talking about philosophy and God and time and what he's working on for his PhD seminar. So just like I knew Jay from long ago, and Nick and Bobby know him as well, I knew Quint when he was little bitty. I mean, teeny tiny little guy. In fact,
good job on growing.
Probably when I met Quint, you were born in, you said 2000,
yeah.
So I would have met you in 2007.
Yeah.
So he was just a year or two older than my oldest when I met Quint back in New Orleans. And so Quint is now a grown-up guy. He probably wouldn't say he's grown up. But the cool thing is our youth group is leaving for camp tomorrow, and Quint has come to Utah to help lead them in worship. And so we just figured, man, we've got some youth parents and people like that watch pastors talk. And so we just wanted to introduce Quint to you so that you would know who is helping lead our youth this week for camp. So we just wanted to take a few minutes tonight to kind of talk with him, interview him a little bit. You could get to know him, and then also just get his perspective about life and ministry as a 20-year-old in a different part of the country. So welcome to Pastor's Talk, Quint.
Thanks, Sean.
And
Bobby says hi, by the way.
Yeah, Bobby says hi.
Oh, well, yes. Hi, Bobby.
and by the way, also, be sure to pray for our youth group. This is Youth Camp COVID edition.
Yes.
They were supposed to be going to Colorado to a Fuge camp, which is something that Quint is a part of. But because of COVID, all summer camps got canceled. We'll talk about that in a minute. Mm-hmm. And so our youth leaders are awesome. they put together their own little camp down near Moab, and so they're going to be heading out in the morning. They'll be there from tomorrow until Sunday afternoon. So just be in prayer for our youth, that God would work in their hearts and that He would move in the group, and that the group would bond and get to know each other and just have a great time. So Quint, you're here from New Orleans, Louisiana, and just tell us a little bit about where you are in your stage of life, what's going on with school, with music and all of that. Kind of just start there.
Yeah, so I was born in 2000, so I'm 20 currently. 2020, wonderful year so far. Yeah, so right now I'm a student at Loyola University in New Orleans. I had kind of prayed all my life. I was like, there's no way I'm staying in the city of New Orleans to go to school, and God likes to play tricks on people. And so that's where I ended up, and I'm studying.
Those absolutes will get you.
That's it. I'm absolutely not.
Yeah.
Big joke on me, but I do love it there. I'm studying music performance, which once I decided that I was going to study music, why would I go anywhere else? And part of that process there, as I was, kind of coming into, deciding where I was going to go to school, a lot of it was, I have a ministry here already. I, grew up in New Orleans. I have connections in the secular music world. I have connections in just the social world, the kids I went to school with. It's like, if I already have this ministry here, why not continue it? If I'm choosing between a great music school here in New Orleans or a great music school somewhere else, there's a lot of benefits in staying in town. And so from that point, from really my senior year of high school, I knew that ministry is something that I was sold out for. Like, that's something that I really wanted to do with my life, and that didn't necessarily have to look vocational. It was just the heart to see people change, see people come to Jesus. And so that's what brought me to Loyola, or kept me in the city of New Orleans. So I'm studying music performance. I'm a percussion primary instrument is my jazz drum set is my primary instrument there. Yeah, with the words.
That's okay.
But in addition to that, like when I'm leading worship, I play guitar, play piano. And I'm currently involved, in addition to being involved in school and the ensembles there. I'm involved at the BCM, at the Tulane Loyola combined BCM.
What is BCM?
BCM is the Baptist Collegiate Ministry.
Cool.
In that area. Different states call it different things, obviously, but that's where we're at. It's something that I really enjoy being a part of, and I consider it a privilege to be a part of, because doing ministry at the collegiate level right now is not easy. It's not like it has been.
Right.
And so things have changed in the culture, and we can get to that later, obviously, as we kind of talk about what it's like doing ministry at my age and my sphere of influence. But it's really great to be able to find other like-minded believers on these very secular campuses and be able to relate to them, and then from there be able to encourage one another to then go out onto the campuses and do ministry.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
This is a super important question.
Mm-hmm.
How many instruments are you proficient in?
Define. Well,
define proficient.
Like you could get up there and people are like, oh, you play that pretty well. Like, how many instruments can you play?
So I grew up playing drum set. That's my dad plays drum set, so that's kind of what I wanted to be like Dad. So I grew up playing drum set, and then when I was probably 14, 15, there was an old guitar sitting in the church office, and I thought to myself, I want to be a good Christian and learn guitar. Because what young male Christian doesn't know guitar?
At least at a Christian college.
Yes, and so I was like, I need to learn guitar. So I started learning guitar. I struggled through it at first, and my mom also plays piano, and so as I was learning guitar, I had the desire to learn piano too, and those kind of went hand in hand. Kind of learned those around the same time. So that's three. So drum set, guitar, and piano, I would say, are probably my top instruments. But I also play bass. I've been working on banjo.
Of course.
Of course.
Any horns or anything?
No, I can play a couple of scales on the saxophone and the
about like a
trumpet.
mandolin?
That mandolin was actually my first string instrument.
Okay.
Before I even got into the guitar, I was like, I'm gonna get in touch with my Appalachian roots. So I got a $50 mandolin
I'm feeling that.
on Amazon, and so that was my first introduction to the string world in music.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, and pretty much self-taught. I mean, you've had some drum lessons, I guess, from Dad
Yeah,
and stuff like
yeah.
that. But as far as like guitar and all that, piano, pretty much taught yourself, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I've had some pointers from our worship pastor back home. I've had some different things here and there as far as that goes. But besides drum set, because I've had proper instruction on drum set. Besides drum set, everything else is pretty much self-taught.
And that's really important, especially with music ministry. And I'm similar. Drums was my first instrument. I actually took drum lessons. I was a percussionist in junior high and high school and that sort of thing. But then I picked up a guitar around 15 or 16. But it's cool to have that background so that when you're leading a band, you actually know how to talk to other musicians.
How to communicate.
Yeah. So that's really cool that you have that whole background. So we'll get to kind of what you mentioned a minute ago with the cultural side of college ministry and all that in just a second. But kind of let us know how things have changed for this summer, or maybe tell us about last summer and what you did, and that we were hoping to do this summer, and what you're going to be doing maybe next summer.
Yeah. So starting last summer, I got involved with Fuge Camps, which is put on by Lifeway, and I was part of the band, and it was a summer camp, and we would. We had our morning worship services, and then I would go and teach Bible study with high school students from around. I mean, the camp was based in Nashville, so we got all kinds of people from different areas, primarily the South. But I would go teach Bible study, we'd go lead mission sites, and then we would have dinner and then evening worship, and so that was a great thing. And I was just a part of the band in that situation that led for morning worship and evening worship. But this summer, I was supposed to be the worship leader for a different location of that same camp, and so I was really excited to be on the team this summer doing that for 7-ish weeks. But God had other plans.
Everything got canceled.
Yes, everything got canceled.
It's done.
So when things started to shift, and I was like, this is unfortunate, but it's all in the Lord's timing, and so you can get caught up in dang, I really wanted to do that, but at the end of the day, the Lord was calling me to serve in a different way this summer, and that's a great thing. But Lord willing, next summer I'll be doing what I was hoping to do this summer, and leading worship at Fuge Camps. I'll have my own band, and we'll be leading students, high school students, middle school students in worship to the Lord.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we wanted to invite Quint out to be a part of our youth and give him that opportunity. And then actually, you're flying out of here late Saturday night, technically early Sunday morning, Red Eye, to go to Nashville to lead a camp there as well. So some back-to-back weeks of lots of.
It'll be a lot, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, we're excited for you.
Yeah.
So you love playing music. You got different instruments you play, but you've also written a couple of songs or co-written with your dad, probably more than a couple. Tell us a little bit about maybe the songwriting process or how that came about, where people can find your music. If they want to find out more, just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so around the time that not long after I started playing guitar and playing piano, I, for whatever reason, went to Dad and was like, I want to write music. And he was like, well, do it. I mean, that was it. It was like, then do it. And so, I had started, and for me, it was, because I didn't know much on the instruments at that point, so I was just kind of winging it and seeing what I could put together, and grew up in a strong theological background. So, I mean, what the ideas that had come into me were, good words. I mean, they weren't crafted, they weren't songwriter quality yet, but, so the gears started turning then. And that's
this
when
was what, 15?
This was, 15, 16, sometime around then. And eventually, I just kept doing a lot of that same stuff. I had gotten into that. And one day I'm sitting in my room, and I get a chord progression, and I get a chorus that I'm like, this is, I don't know much, but this is good. So I ran outside. I think my dad was outside on the porch, and I said, help me with this. Like I need to do something with it, with this song. And so from that point forward, it was, I had established that, my dad is he's a great theologian. So I mean, he's poetic too. I mean, besides his theological knowledge.
Well, he knows how to alliterate a sermon.
Yeah. I mean,
I have learned that about you, Jay.
Yes, he's big on the alliteration, but. And so I knew in my head, I was like, okay, he's a good writer of words, and so he can help. Even if I'm just feeding some ideas, he can help craft it. Let's see how this works. And so, I went outside. I was like, here's this idea, and he said, that's great. And so we started crafting it. And so that became kind of the process of how things started working. As I grew in my musical knowledge, I was able to do more things, and I was able to grow in that and, create more complex ideas. But so we kind of started stocking up on this catalog of songs that we'd written together, and some of them, the early on, we were kind of this, maybe, some of them were far better than others, but that's just the process you learn. And eventually, we got, a good amount of songs going. We were leading them at church, and, I had always, throughout this whole period, had the desire I want to release these, because my desire in writing these songs with Dad was never to just keep them to myself. I'm not, trying to write pop songs that stay with me. This is something that I wanted to, because they were worship songs and hymns, I wanted to equip local churches with them. So a church can't really lead my music if it's not available for them to hear and learn. And so it wasn't till this past, when quarantine started, I had all this time on my hands, and it was like, I really need to get onto this, because I just been sitting on 15-ish songs for so long. It was like this, it was like something I finally needed to just grow, let it be, record it, and put it out there. And I never expected anything to be, super famous, be on K-Love overnight, but
That's good.
yeah, it's good to not expect that, but but it was a blessing, because there's something therapeutic of like something you created and then releasing it.
Oh, for sure.
And it's, if you love something, let it go. And so that was what it felt like. And I finally, after years of sitting on these songs, I started the process of beginning to release this music. And so they range from the very first song I released, which is entitled Restored. That's something I wrote only a year ago, so that's a little bit more recent. The second song I released was a song called Follow You, and that's a song that I've been sitting on since early on in the songwriting process. That was one of the first ones me and Dad wrote together. And so it's something that I really love to do, but I think the biggest joy that comes in it is being able to capture the truths of Scripture, and then articulate them in a fresh way, in a new way, so that the body can sing together those truths.
So let me ask a question with that, because you clearly are probably ahead of your age in maturity and understanding even songwriting. You don't have to agree, but I think you are.
Okay.
How do you fight that tension with writing songs that might tickle ears, that are not necessarily bad?
Yeah.
But because it sounds like you're really intentional with your lyrics. How do you? Is there tension, or is that just maybe for you not a thing? How do you fight that balance of writing something like you said you want the local church to hear, as opposed to making something, hey, I know that everyone will just like it?
Yeah. That's something that I think early on I had. As I've grown, I've had a far better grasp on that than earlier on. Because earlier on, my biggest exposure to Christian music was the local church, but I had Christian radio, and I had Spotify worship playlists, and while those things can be good, the songs that I was putting into my system weren't necessarily very refined. And so I was just kind of taking in whatever was available.
Right.
Whereas on the other end of the spectrum, my dad obviously he's grown into that, but from my beginning, he's had the understanding that words are important, and doing those things are important. And so early on, I would come with ideas that maybe were more fluffy, and it was more, it was really just a response to what I had filled my head with. And those weren't bad, like you were saying, it's not bad music.
Yeah.
But I was just coming up with these, catchy little lines, catchy little things. And I would bring them to Dad, and he's like, well, maybe we can get, a deeper truth. And it's not like what you said is bad, it's not like your idea was bad,
Right.
but let's try to dig deeper. And so throughout the whole process, because all the songs I've written and that are in the works of being released have been between me and my dad. And so even though I feel like I'm on a similar page with him now, early on it was a lot harder, because a lot of my friends that were into Christian music, they were in the same boat as me. They didn't have, they weren't refining, they weren't like being particular about what they were taking in.
Yeah.
And so I didn't quite get why I couldn't just, write a quick couple lines and call it a day. And so early on, it was kind of frustrating, you know, like I would bring ideas and he'd be like, let's dig deeper, let's work on this. And so, but as time went on, and as I've grown spiritually and just in like maturity in general, it's something I've gotten better at, but it's still a tension that has to be balanced.
Right.
Because I'm now at a point where I have a lot of friends in the Christian music world, in the contemporary Christian music world, that haven't had somebody to push them into truth. And like they're writing great songs, they're writing good, beautiful melodies and things like that, but they haven't had somebody to counteract them in the way that I have. And so I'm still having to balance those things, because I have friends that are saying, hey, let's co-write together, and I'm like, let's go. But I have to basically kind of do what my dad did to me, and just help be a balance,
right?
Because there's a seat at the table for great, fantastic songs that are really, just enjoyable, and
absolutely.
for awesome, super deep hymns. And so I just, I'm now kind of seeing myself in the other,
really cool.
in the other shoes, so to speak.
Well, when you released Restored, a month and a half, 2 months ago, I think I had maybe heard it, and then you did a re-release. You put it on YouTube first, and you kind of re-released it. But I remember hearing that going, we got to sing that at Redemption. And we haven't yet. We're still going to. But it really is a great tune, great words, easy to sing melody. So church, be looking for that. Because soon we're going to do that. We will post in the comments of the live feed tonight some links to YouTube videos and stuff that we put out there.
And the music's available on all of the major platforms. So we're talking Apple Music,
Just
Spotify,
search Quint Adkins,
iTunes. Yeah, you can search Quint Adkins. I mean, probably the easiest way would be to go to the link, and it's just pretty easy to click that link. But if you go to Apple Music or Tidal,
if you want to support a struggling poor college kid,
that's it.
You probably get like 2 cents from a 99-cent
buy it twice
iTunes thing.
Yes, buy it twice. I mean, whatever whatever you use. Some people still buy songs on iTunes, or you're just streaming on YouTube or whatever. Either way, I'm making some semblance of money.
Right.
Either way, but yeah.
So go search for it, or we'll post it in the comments as well. And you can. I'm telling you, it's great stuff. I'm not just saying that because he's my friend. He really has done a great job.
I want to say this to add and I knew this probably about you even without meeting you. For our church, Dan spends a really large amount of time being particular on the words that we sing and how they affect our worship. And people may not know that, but
and that's in large part due to his dad, honestly, because I worked for his dad for 9 years at his church.
So it doesn't shock me, but I'm grateful though, because I know Bobby and Tim and I all would agree to this. We are relieved to sit in a worship setting that we know the worship is also teaching the truth that we're trying to accomplish. And so it's really awesome as just hearing a young artist value that is an encouragement to me.
So we'll post some on in the comments there as soon as we finish. We'll try to shortly thereafter. So be sure to check back here in a little bit if you want to find his stuff, or just again search Quint Adkins on iTunes, Spotify, on YouTube. Any way you can will help this guy out. So do that. So let's talk a little bit about kind of just your perception of the world, so to speak. Like, you're 20 years old. It's a crazy time to live in, period, no matter what age you are. But specifically as a college student and as a Christian college student at a secular university, in a time, in an era where probably it's not easy to be a Christian student. I mean, even for me, I finished college in 2006, I think, and it was starting to get pretty crazy on secular university campuses. But I can't imagine 14 years later what it's like to be probably the vast minority, at least religiously and culturally speaking. So maybe share with us just a simple question. What is one, we'll start with the negative first. What's one kind of really discouraging thing that you have felt being a college student who's a Christian, or what's one really hard thing for you and your Christian friends? Maybe start there, and then we'll follow that up with what are some cool things you see happening.
Yeah, I'd say, I wouldn't say anything's necessarily discouraging. I'd say the biggest issue I see in ministry among my peers, people who are doing ministry and similar minded to me is that it's easy for us to get discouraged when we don't see the responses that we've been conditioned to expect.
Yeah.
Because so many of us that are in these circles have grown up in churches that are kind of living in the aftermath of the revivals of the 50s and the 60s, and living in that very Judeo-Christian, very church-centric culture. With those, obviously that has drawbacks, but what we're living in is we've kind of grown up. Many people like me, obviously there are exceptions, but this is a broad brush, but so many have grown up in that aftermath of where they're expected to have a conversation with somebody and them come to Jesus right then and there. And so it's easy for us to get discouraged when we try to have these gospel conversations, and we try to engage people in the culture and on our campuses, and we don't see the response that we have been conditioned to look for. So that can be something that's really that gets discouraging.
So would you say you feel like you live in a post-Christian culture where you are?
Yeah, I would
almost
say
to where there's a lot of people who they didn't even touch the doors of a church, or maybe don't know much, if at all, about the Bible.
I would say out of my friend group, out of my sphere, even beyond people I would consider close friends, the only, this is kind of again a broad brush, but this is just off the top of my head, the only people I know that have had any interaction with church growing up have been hurt by the church. And it's, for most of them, sometimes it turns into anger. But for a lot of them, it's just like they don't get it. It's like there's this disconnect, because clearly we supposedly hold ourselves to a moral conduct. We supposedly hold ourselves to this high standard, but yet they've been hurt and they've been shunned and pushed away in a very un-Christ-like manner for so many of them. And so I would say it's post-Christian, and at the university specifically, we're pulling people from Seattle, from the Northeast, from Florida, from Texas. We're pulling people from all over the United States. And it's like the one thing that they all have in common. Everybody has a different culture, but the one thing they all have in common is, for those who have any interaction with the church, most of them have been hurt by the church. And then on the other hand, the few that haven't been hurt by the church have grown up in a church that didn't really represent Christ, and they represented more of a social gospel that wasn't centered on the truth. And so I'm dealing with these two ends of the spectrum here: people who've been hurt by the church and people who have a very low view of the church. And it's difficult, and it's discouraging when we try to engage them in the ways that we've been taught to, in the ways that we've been trained to. It doesn't work.
And just another great reminder to pray for our college students. We have a college campus 2 minutes from our church building. Weaver State University, and
cheerfully, that was what spurred Redemption Church to be planted, was ministry on Weaver State. You walk on campus there, and it's very difficult to even find a single Christian. They're there, but for sure.
So, in a similar way, it'd be tough at Weaver State as a believer in Christ. Okay, so maybe that's the negative or the slightly discouraging thing. What are some positive things that you've seen recently, or some ways you've seen God working in your generation or in college students? Tell us maybe one or two of those things.
Something that I think it was kind of hard when you asked me about the discouraging things, because I see right now as a huge blessing. And that might sound strange, because for many older believers who have lived in a different generation, a different time period, they see this time and they see it as, this is hard, this is difficult. I can't imagine what it would be like to be in the shoes. And while, that's all valid. It is a harder time. It is different. But what I see that is so overwhelmingly positive is the fact that people are just transparent. Like, people don't hide that they've been hurt by the church. People don't hide that they're living in sin. People don't hide that they, people just don't hide themselves. Obviously, there's aspects in which people shield themselves, people become secluded. But for the most part, when you engage in a real friendship with somebody, when you engage in a real conversation with somebody, they're going to open up. And so what I see as an overwhelming positive is that when I'm dealing with somebody, when I'm trying to minister to them or lead them to the Lord, or even after the fact disciple them, there's not this barrier where they feel like they have to put up a show.
Right.
They haven't been conditioned to think that they have to put on the show. They don't have to be fake.
Right.
Because we're in a culture right now that it's be as you are, and and whereas that does have its drawbacks, as far as ministry goes, I see that as a beautiful window in for the gospel, because I don't have to deal with people saying that they're Christians and they're not in the least, or people that are putting on the show and acting the ways that they were taught to act, or saying the things they were taught to say, and then only to find out that they're living in unrepentant sin on beneath the surface. And so it's been a blessing to be able to just be so upfront with people, and
That's
people
awesome.
if they don't like your beliefs, they're not going to be like, yeah, well, they're not going to hide that from you, and so where you stand with people, and that just it encourages me to keep pushing forward, because I know that I'm not going to change people's hearts. I know it's the Lord who's going to change hearts, and so the pressure's off of me. If that makes sense.
Which absolutely does.
So what's your favorite thing about leading worship? You're here to do that for our youth. You've done it all last summer. I suppose you intend to do that in the future, hopefully for a long time. Whether it's in a church, at a youth camp, at a Disciple Now weekend, what's your favorite, if you could name one favorite thing, what's your favorite thing about doing that?
I think it's easy for worship leaders and people in the Christian music world to get caught up in the production elements of things and the hype, and I'm like the chief among them. I love tech, I love the lights.
Well,
and all that
your
fun stuff.
songs, right? You tracked every instrument.
Oh yeah,
right?
I tracked every instrument.
Some
I
of it's
programmed
digital,
everything.
some of it's real instruments.
Yeah, everything.
Is there a mandolin in it?
There are no mandolins. Yeah.
And I'm telling you, when you go listen to it, it's self-recorded in your bedroom.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it was mixed in a massive $1 million studio.
Yeah, I don't want to hear the music.
Right.
From my bed.
Anyway, sorry to cut you off.
But no. But that's the thing is I'm really invested
Can't sing.
in music tech. I love it, and that's something that I really enjoy. But at the same time, my heart when it comes to leading worship is I think the point of why we worship, and that's corporate singing. That's it. It's anything you add to that is accompaniment. And I think sometimes we get it backwards. It's like we have the stage and the music, and the singing is great. We all love it. Nobody's going to say I hate the singing part of worship. But I think we get the cart before the horse. The most important part is singing. And so when I can sit back, and if I'm playing with the band, if we can just kind of sit back for a second and let the people of God sing together, that is by far my favorite thing. Just being able to hear the out of tune, hear the beautiful singers all together as one voice, lifting up praise to God. I don't know, I can't get over it. That it sometimes makes me not want the music. I'm like, let's just sing. I'll give you your starting note and let's just sing together.
Yeah.
My favorite worship experience in college was a room full of about 20 guys with one guitar, and it was the most off-pitch, horrible sound, but it was one of the coolest experiences because no one cared.
Yeah.
They just were doing the thing that we were meant to do.
Right. And as a worship leader, I echo that sentiment. I love it on a Sunday morning when this room is filled with people, or there's only a few people, when I can actually hear people singing. That helps me to worship as the worship leader.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool to know you can strip away all the instruments, you can strip away the lights. We don't have lights here really, but some places they do. And man, when you can hear God's people singing together, and I can hear Ryan from the back of the room singing to the top of his lungs, or I can hear, an older person over here. I can hear it's amazing because that's what you're there to do, is to help people do that. So church, no matter how bad you think you sing, it doesn't matter. Sing it out. It's giving praises to God, and it's what we were made to do, to worship something. Let's worship the Creator, God.
And for what it's worth, us worship leaders, we honestly don't care how bad anybody's singing.
No.
Yeah.
Hearing somebody who is the worst singer on earth is better than hearing nothing.
Right. Now, clapping off beat, maybe that's a little
disruptive.
different, because that's hard now. I've been in some worship situations where you had the loud clapper on the front row that
You gotta call me out in front of everybody.
couldn't carry a rhythm. That can be distracting. But as far as singing, man, sing your hearts out, church. Do that. So, well, man, it's just been so good hearing from you, and hopefully our people have enjoyed listening to kind of your background, your life. As Nick said, you may not think you're mature, but man, for a 20-year-old, you've got some wisdom, and we love the fact that you're here to lead our youth again.
We're excited for the future of worship music.
Yeah. So be sure to go check out Quint's music on YouTube or anywhere else songs are, Spotify, and help support him. And then again, be praying for not only Quint, but our youth group. There's 8 students, 7 adults, including the speaker and his wife as well, traveling down to Moab tomorrow morning. They're going to be going to Arches and doing some whitewater rafting, a lot of fun stuff, but also their hope is to engage the Word of God through His creation. And so just pray for them, and definitely keep them on your mind in the next couple of days. It's going to be a great week. So thank you so much for tuning in to Pastor's Talk this week. And Lord willing, we'll be back again next week, hopefully at 6:30, if all goes well. Be sure to also, if you have questions about anything, it could be a verse of the Bible that frustrates you, you don't understand, or it could be anything on religion or scripture or whatever. Text those questions to the number 94,000. Just write the word redemption first, and then your question, and send it to 94,000. And at some point in time, hopefully in the future, we will get to answering those questions. That's primarily what we do these Wednesday night talks for. Tonight was a special time with Quint. But you can text those in, you can email us, message us on Facebook,